Another debate in the books. We are once again joined by our panel of analysts.
Political consultant Matt Klink, civil rights attorney and founding director of the UCLA Latino Policy and Politics Initiative, Sonia Diaz, and Dakota communications consultant Kerman Maddox. Welcome to you all. Kerman, let's start with you. This was a whole lot different than what we saw last week, and we actually got some policy here. What do you think about the performance of both, the vice president and Senator Kamala Harris?
Well, unlike last week, this was a very substantive civil debate. I think if you are a Trump supporter, you were very pleased with the performance of VP Mike Pence. He's smooth. He's a great communicator. He dispenses a lot of misinformation and often doesn't answer the questions, but his demeanor is very soothing and frankly, very convincing. If you're a supporter of Joe Biden, I think you feel that Kamala Harris did a pretty good job painting a picture of contrast between Vice President Joe Biden and President Trump. So I think at the end of the day, both of them did a very good job. And frankly, they brought some respect back to the institution of this tradition of debates between presidential and vice presidential candidates. So unlike last week when I thought the American public lost, I thought tonight was a good night for basically everybody involved, most importantly, the American public, because we learned some things tonight.
Sonia, to you, an outsized importance, this vice presidential debate with the relative age of both men at the top of the ticket. We're in the middle of a pandemic, and frankly, the questions surrounding the president's health remain tonight. What was your takeaway?
I think that it was really important for Senator Kamala Harris to really paint the picture of the coronavirus pandemic. I was surprised at how quickly the topic changed. But I do think that Senator Harris was clear that the American public deserves the truth. They deserve factual information from the top, and it's the failure of leadership out of the Trump administration, for which VP Pence is the head of the White House task force on COVID-19. So I think that the debate was really centered on civility, which was very refreshing. But again, I think that Senator Harris packed the most punches and was very astute in terms of the public health epidemic and the way that it's impacting Americans.
Let's take a look at what they actually did say, what the vice president and senator had to say about the administration's response to the pandemic. And afterwards, Matt, we'd like you to respond. Take a listen.
210,000 dead people in our country in just the last several months. Over 7 million people who have contracted this disease. 1 in 5 businesses closed. And here's the thing. On January 28th, the vice president and the president were informed about the nature of this pandemic. They were informed that it's lethal in consequence, that it is airborne, that it will affect young people, and that it would be contracted because it is airborne. And they knew what was happening, and they didn't tell you.
President Donald Trump has put the health of America first. Before, there were more than 5 cases in the United States, all people who had returned from China. President Donald Trump did what no other American president had ever done, and that was he suspended all travel from China, the second largest economy in the world. And I believe it saved hundreds of thousands of American lives. But when you say what the American people have done over these last 8 months hasn't worked, that's a great disservice to the sacrifices the American people have made.
Over to you, Matt, your thoughts on how they handled the coronavirus pandemic topic.
Look, I think, Cher, that they're both right. I mean, Donald Trump and his administration have not handled it well. And Joe Biden, his plan for what they would do if they were in charge, it is a carbon copy of what the Trump administration is doing, with the exception of Biden saying that he would reclose the economy again. The bottom line is that no administration, no matter who they are, is equipped to handle this virus. It has definitely gotten the better of us. And look, the majority of the deaths in the coronavirus have occurred in New York State, New Jersey, and California. So, I mean, it's, again, a terrible situation. Trump, unfortunately, is going to bear the brunt of it because the buck stops with him. Kamala Harris knows that, and she hammered him for it. And, you know, Trump's trying to make lemonade out of lemons, and I think it's going to be a tough sell. But as I've said before, The coronavirus is the third candidate in this race, and right now it is attacking President Trump, literally and figuratively.
Again, the age of the men at the top of this ticket is a very important issue here as the vice presidential candidates addressing health and transparency, particularly as it relates to the two men at the top. Here's what both of them had to say.
But the care the president received at Walter Reed Hospital, the White House doctors, was exceptional. And the transparency that they practiced all along the way will continue. The American people have a right to know about the health and well-being of their president, and will continue to do that. But I'm just extremely grateful and was more than a little moved by the broad and bipartisan support. And Senator, I want to thank you and Joe Biden for your expressions of genuine concern.
Joe Biden has been so incredibly transparent, and certainly by contrast, the president has not, both in terms of health records, but also let's look at taxes. We now know, because of great investigative journalism, that Donald Trump paid $750 in taxes. When I first heard about it, I literally said, "You mean $750,000? And it was like, no, $750. We now know Donald Trump owes and is in debt for $400 million. And just so everyone is clear, when we say in debt, it means you owe money to somebody. And it'd be really good to know who the President of the United States, the Commander-in-Chief, owes money to, because the American people have a right to know what is influencing the President's decisions. And is he making those decisions on the best interest of the American people, of you, or self-interest?
There's the answer from both candidates. And Kerman, as you well know, both candidates dodged the question as it relates to succession. What do you say?
Well, whenever there's a debate on the issue of transparency, Micah, based on the history of Donald Trump and this administration misleading the American public and not telling the truth, the advantage is always going to be with Joe Biden. I mean, that's just a fact. So I wish in that particular case they would have provided additional information. But I think the person who dodged more questions, not only on that, but on other issues, was VP Mike Pence. So like I said, he's very convincing. He's got a very soothing manner, but he doesn't answer the questions and he doesn't tell the truth. And that's been the history of this administration. So again, it was a civil debate. I think we learned a lot, but there are a lot of very important questions that simply were not answered. And again, this continued dispensing of misinformation about President Trump disavowing white nationalists and not answering questions about wearing masks in the Rose Garden and things like that. I mean, that's just frustrating.
Susan Page, the moderator, asked both the vice president and Senator Kamala Harris the direct question of, is there an agreement about presidential disability and what is the plan? And both of them had nothing to say. They skirted those issues. What do you say about that, Sonia? I mean, I think that the public has the right to know.
Well, definitely, especially as it relates to the current administration, for which this is a supreme issue. And we, again, are not getting reliable, accurate information out of the White House and out of the White House's doctors, which is just unacceptable. On that point, Senator Harris pivoted about transparency, about the need to release tax forms. I think that's a really important issue. For Senator Harris, she may have answered that question by showing that she can sit and stand on this stage at the national level. Remember, of the 4 people who have debated in the last 2 weeks, Senator Harris is the only one who has not won on a national ticket. And she had more to prove. She was calm, she was collected. She said the lines that were likely out of VP Biden that the campaign wanted to get out into the ether. And more than that, she was important. I think in addition to the health transparency, what we saw again in the VP debate is a little bit of what we saw in the presidential debate, in that VP Pence did not say there would be a peaceful transition of power. And that, to me, is frankly unacceptable.
Matt, your thoughts on health and transparency, and I'm also curious as to your take on whether you believe Vice President Mike Pence helped the ticket for Republicans more than Kamala Harris did for the Democrats, or vice versa.
Well, I have actually three things, two serious and one joking. So the first serious one is, of course, there is a very detailed plan that every single administration has. And no, the Trump administration is no different. They have the same plan, the continuity of government plan, where all of the scenarios under which power would be transferred to the vice president and to the next in command after that, which would be the Speaker of the House. It's all laid out. It's all documented. Susan Page knows that. And neither candidate wasted their time answering that question because it's not a relevant question. The second one, I think what you saw Mike Pence do tonight was he absolutely answered in a very straightforward way, in a Midwestern way that will resonate with the majority of the country about Donald Trump and his policies. And he highlighted the absolute liberal, out of touch policies of the Biden Harris ticket, the Green New Deal, getting rid of fossil fuel, stopping fracking. When Kamala Harris raised her hand and said she would cancel your private insurance. So he was very effective on that. But I think most important and what people are going to be talking about is that stupid fly on Mike Pence's head for about 5 minutes. So I'm sorry to make a joke at the end of all that, but the Twitter sphere is erupting with the fly on his head. So
the fly and the sneezing.
One joke.
Yeah. And you're
Remember
allowed.
President Obama with the fly? He was able to catch that real quick.
Yeah, fair enough. Your thoughts on who helped the ticket more, Matt?
Definitely tonight was a victory for the vice president. He was solid. He countered. I mean, he even figured out a way to attack Kamala Harris for the left on crime, which is always a tough thing because she's so liberal. It was a very good night for Vice President Mike Pence.
Well, that's the thing, is that Kamala needed to demonstrate that to the voters out there that she's not so much to the far left. Do you think that she was able to do that?
Absolutely. She continued to bring up her prosecutorial record. I mean, she was the top cop and the top prosecutor in the largest state in the country and essentially won statewide office 3 times. She was also really on point in terms of talking about her role with the foreclosure crisis, subprime lending. A lot of people are housing insecure right now because of the recession. And finally, I think that it's important, and I don't know if anybody else caught this, but she talked about for-profit colleges that were going after veterans. One such college was Trump University. She and her department were able to successfully argue a case that they were doing misrepresentation and fraudulent advertising that was targeting our heroes.
Kerman, you have a minute to get in on this. A joke is not required.
No joke. I mean, fundamentally, the question is who won the debate tonight. I thought both candidates represented the top of the ticket very well. But here's the key question, Micah. Did Vice President Pence say anything tonight that's going to change the narrative over the next couple of days and change the trajectory of this race? I think the answer to that question is absolutely no. So yeah, he performed well, but is it going to change the trajectory of the race? No, because what is going to happen is Donald Trump, the president, is going to do something crazy tomorrow. He's going to tweet something crazy and continue this downward slide. And so, Pence did well for President Trump tonight, but did it change anything? I don't think so.
I agree. Vice presidential debates never do. Although I think Kamala Harris made news when she said that her work she wants to do to America's judicial system what she did for California's. I think that's going to send shivers down much of the United States when that quote gets out there.
All right, so we're going to take a quick break here with our panel and continue our conversation on the other side with more on this special edition of the KTLA 5 News. Back in a moment. Let's bring in our panel of experts.
And we've got about a minute left, gang. Let's go around the horn. Final thoughts. First to Matt, then Sonia, then Kerman. 20 seconds each. Go.
Vice President Mike Pence did his job today. The debate was a civil, refreshing event that should be what mature adults running for the top office or the second to the top office in this land are capable of doing. And I do agree that it did not reshuffle the race, but it was very, very positive for Mike Pence and his future. So a good night on whole for Mike Pence.
And Sonia?
Historic night for women of color, historic night and evening for the state of California. We have one of our finest up there on a national stage, and I think it was clear for women everywhere when Senator Harris asked VP Pence to stop interrupting her. So I'm waiting for the t-shirt.
Kerman Maddox, final word.
Yeah, good night for VP candidate Kamala Harris. I think she represented California well as a person of color. I'm very proud of her performance. And again, I don't think it changed the direction of the race, but I think frankly, both candidates did really well. So it was a good night for the debate.
Kerman Maddox, Sonia Diaz, Matt Klink, good of you to take the time. Thanks for being with us. That's going to do it for KTLA's special coverage of the vice presidential debate.
We'll have much more analysis and reaction, as well as the day's news, coming up tonight on the KTLA News at 10 and 11. Hope to see you then. Good night.